Joining us right now is Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. Senator, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Maria.
Give us your sense of the timeline for replacing Obamacare. What will that look like?
You know, as a physician, nobody probably hates Obamacare or sees its failure more than I do and want to get rid of it as soon as possible. So I'll vote for whatever timeline is as soon as possible to get rid of it. I will tell you one of my concerns, though. If you leave in place some of Obamacare, like if you leave in place that insurance companies must sell insurance to people after they become sick, I think what you have is an insurance model that won't work and will lead to bankruptcy of the insurance companies. So I am concerned that you repeal part of Obamacare, but you leave in place things like the pre-existing condition without the individual mandate. So healthy people won't buy insurance, but sick people will. That's an insurance model that is very, very risky to the business itself. And I fear we will be back a year or two later having to bail out insurance companies if we leave part of it in place.
Wow. Well, I mean, then what happens to those people with pre-existing conditions?
Yeah, I think what we need to do is make it easier for people to be larger pools to begin with. So if I have 10 employees and one of my employees gets breast cancer, it's devastating not only to the employee but economically to the company. Really, we need to make it easier for a company of 10 people to band with another company of 10 people and another, so we would have pools of thousands of people. Ideally, health insurance should be more like life insurance. Nobody asks you where you work, and when you apply for a life insurance, you're part of a pool of people aged 53. That's the way health insurance ought to be, too. Instead, you're part of a pool of employment, and that was an artificial thing set up by government after World War II. We made the tax exemption based on your employment. That was a big mistake. That's still something we need to fix as part of the replacement of Obamacare.
So you think this is doable then, and what's the timeline in terms of getting this done, an actual replacement? That's
the hard part. See, the way our congressional rules work, these arcane rules say that we can repeal Obamacare with a simple majority, 50% or more, but we can only replace it in the Senate with 60 votes or more, 60% or more. So it's much more difficult for us to get replacement into place, and that's what I'm worried about, is that we repeal part of it, we leave in place things that don't work economically, and that the thing continues to unravel, and it is unraveling. I mean, it is unraveling as we speak, but my fear is we repeal half of it and it continues to unravel for 3 or 4 more years, and in some ways may get worse as insurance companies begin to rack up even more losses than they're racking up now.
Well, it's good that you put that forth, because that's really been the issue, and a lot of people who are looking to repeal and replace feel that that's one of the things to keep, the existing conditions. So we'll see how that plays out. Senator, you've talked a lot about seeing a return of fiscal responsibility to Congress. What about that? How do you plan to help balance the budget once President-elect Trump takes office, given these grand plans of lowering taxes and spending money on infrastructure?
Well, the interesting thing is they're interrelated with Obamacare, because you can't repeal Obamacare until you pass a budget. So Senate Republicans are getting ready to put forward a budget that never balances. And I've told them, I put them on notice, I won't vote for it, because I cannot vote for a budget that has a plan that never balances. I mean, we're talking about 10 years, 20 years, 1,000 years from now, their plan never balances, and that's not what I ran on. I ran on that really the debt may well be a bigger problem than Obamacare. And so if we give up on who we are as fiscal conservatives, I think that's a real problem. So I'm pushing my colleagues to say, look, if you need my vote, why don't you put forward a budget that balances in a reasonable time?
So something's got to give, right? I mean, the president-elect has talked about increasing the military, expanding military. That costs money. Putting an infrastructure plan in place, that costs money. Lowering taxes, that's also going to be expensive. So what are you willing to give on then for the balanced budget?
Well, it's interesting when you look at the budget. 2/3 of our spending is entitlements, Medicare, Medicaid, and food stamps, etc. 1/3 of it is military and non-military. That's called the discretionary spending. If you get rid of all of military spending, which I'm not proposing, and you get rid of all the other discretionary spending, you still don't balance it. That's why I'm concerned that the incoming administration is saying, oh, entitlements are off limits. The problem is, if you're not willing to reform entitlements, the whole system's going bankrupt. It will all be short of money. There will be no money for those who are on Social Security or on Medicare if we do not fix them. The sooner the better. It's a demographic problem. It's not enough young people and too many retired people that we have to fix that problem by adjusting the age of eligibility and various other things.
We make a good point. That takes courage. So we'll see if they could really, and you guys can tackle entitlements early in the year, because you're right, that's where the money is. Real quick, Senator, we're going to have your father on in a few minutes, Ron Paul. What do you want us to ask him? What do you want to hear from your dad?
Let's see. Why don't you ask him whether John Bolton would be good in the State Department? I'll bet he's got an opinion on that.
Ah, okay. We will do that. Senator, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Senator Rand Paul there. We'll be right back.